Welcome back, ladies and germs. Today we're going to be creating a kick using some AI and some fancy plugins. It's gonna be a good time. So, my library, it's growing every day. We got some melodic material, a little bit of drum material, but we don't really have our own one-shots besides these right here. So, I had this idea about going to random places outside, getting some Foley samples, maybe going to the local music stores and recording some acoustic drums, and just randomly just hitting stuff, anything I could think of that might make an interesting Foley sample that could be layered or processed. But since I haven't really done that idea yet, for now, so we can get something started, let's just steal from other people. How about that? No, we're not gonna steal in a bad way. We're not gonna just straight up copy people's work. That would just be pointless. But I'm gonna show you how to take some low budget samples that I bought last Black Friday. I mean, I think I spent like $9 for like gigabytes of one shots. So I wasn't really expecting them to be good, but the value I saw in that was the variety in waveforms, which is probably very immense. So anyway, the idea is we're going to start with something simple, some kick drums, and in my opinion, I mean, the perfect kick drum is just a straight up sine wave. It doesn't get more perfect than that because it literally has no character. It's just a sine wave. So the dynamics are perfect, the waveform coherence is perfect, and that's actually what's wrong with it, is it's so boring. I mean, it's a good kick, but it needs some work. Today we're going to be using Kick 3, by the way, by Sonic Digital. Actually, I thought there was more to this. Aren't they called Sonic Academy? Well, anyway, if you haven't seen this plugin yet, you should definitely check out some videos on YouTube about it. I have my own video where I did a little rant when they had this amazing update allowing you to distort your waveform over time, such as this right here. As you can see, I can draw some pretty wacky curves, and the higher this value is basically an automation over the time domain, and now you can see I have distortion coming in and out of this very short sample here. I mean, how cool is that, right? Anyway, we don't want to be doing anything wacky like this today. We just kind of want to make a library of one-shots that can be either useful to directly drag and drop or for further manipulation, such as compression, EQ, limiting, whatever. And to do that, we're going to quote-unquote steal other people's work, but not directly. We're just going to take crappy samples that are unusable on their own already, and we're going to repair them with Kick 3. So let's get started. I'm going to go to my downloaded audio libraries.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
As you can see, we have quite a variety of kick sounds, and also quite a variety on how useful they are. I mean, I get it that samples like this could be creative, but I would never use that. Let's start with the hardest one first. Let's see if we can repair this kick and transform it into something completely different, but ultimately something usable. Here's how we're gonna do that. We're gonna drag this into kick. It's that simple. We're gonna analyze with AI, and then we're going to analyze and import. That way we get the original sample as well as the analysis, which is going to resynthesize this kick by splitting it into two channels here. This channel is the synthesized part. If I solo it, this part, however, is a sample, and it's meant to complement this synthesized part. So when you put them together, you have the original, which, if you need to preview, is also over here in the red. So as you can tell, there is no difference in audio, which is very impressive because now we have the ability to reshape this kick completely. I'm going to make sure I'm in linear mode. By default, it is in logarithmic. As you can see, when I move this here, it's affecting the sound there, versus in logarithmic, it's like over here, but yet it's affecting the sound here. The advantage to the logarithmic view is you can affect the transient of your sound with more detail by zooming into this area here. That being said, in my opinion, I think linear should be the default position. Anyway, let's go ahead and reshape the sub of our kick with the synthesized portion. Let's go to the amp here and give us a lot more amplitude. In fact, we can get rid of all those weird curves altogether. And then I like to have sort of a hold on my kicks. So something a little like this. And now we can go to pitch and give ourselves a little less of that chirpingness. You can see we're heading towards tom territory. So to eliminate that, I'm going to decay our pitch on the tail end. Now I'm going to take this entire sample and shorten its length. As you can see, we have something that doesn't resemble our original at all. But we are going to borrow its characteristics by blending in this audio. First, let's make sure we've fine-tuned this enough. We can look at our amp here and shorten perhaps a little more as it decays. And then I like to make sure that the waveform doesn't crimp like this, because sometimes you'll get a high frequency spike even though it's not showing in the waveform after certain processing that could cause issues down the line. Let's go ahead and just adjust this. That's pretty good right there. Now let's go ahead and unsolo and start blending in our second waveform here. Let's solo our waveform so we can do some much needed work to this. First thing is I want to take out this tonal information. So we'll unlink these fields here and shorten the length of this sample. And then with our amp envelope here, we're going to simply bring the silence closer to the transient. Now I don't have to cut all this sound immediately when it starts. I can fade it out and it'll be relatively quiet enough that it won't be a bother. In fact, you'll notice now it adds a nice side element, high frequency in the left speaker. So if I increase that, I can get something of sort of like a reverb. Let's see how that goes with the kick. Okay, I do not prefer that reverb, although it sounds cool on its own. I don't want it in the kick, so what we're gonna do is shorten it, and then also perhaps we can reduce the transient here with some attack. Let's hear that with the kick. So as you can hear, if I mute this element, the kick is too perfect, it's too dry. But when we add this, now we have our high frequency information. Basically the dirt to our kick. Now one thing I wish this plugin had was an oscilloscope for end of chain, so we can actually see these two waveforms combined. That would be extremely helpful. So let's be reminded of the original sample here. And now our new sample. It's still not perfect, but the point I'm making currently is this still stealing? Because I don't think in any way this could be reverse engineered and traced back to the original sound. It's been changed so much that pretty much every unique identifier of the waveform originally, which is this waveform, has been eliminated. Now, our kick is lacking some frequencies in certain areas. It seems a bit dark. So now we can move on to the effects portion. I think I like the wave. Perhaps the easiest way to get brightness is the obvious way, which is with EQ. Now, one thing that's pretty interesting about this software is we can also resample the kick and bring it into another instance. So let's go ahead and generate our sample by clicking here, and now we have our sample. And then drag the sample into kick. We'll analyze and import, and now we have another instance to further process this one kick sample. Here's the click portion. Very strange sounding. And here's the sub portion. I want to modify the crimp at the tail end of the sample. And theoretically, the amp here, this end part should get rid of that shape. Let's find out. You'll see in this green portion, you could think of everything in this sample as the opposite of this blue fundamental frequency or the clean body of the kick, right? So in a sense, all the noise is what's in green. Everything that's a deviation from this sound here, which is just the low end of the kick. So, in a way, that rumble, that undesirable earthquakey noise in kicks, that's being separated and shown as a waveform here. So when this is at full scale like this, you can almost just see the undesirable portion of your kick. Don't mistake that for this side. Everything over here we want. This is the character of the kick. This is what makes the kick stand out, separate from other sub kicks, which sub kicks would just be the same. I mean, it's hard to have variety in a down pitched sine wave. There's only amplitude and frequency. But when a signal is more complex, this is sort of what makes your kick stand apart. But this over here at the tail end is completely unnecessary. We can simply just remove that. Now I do want to leave some rumble there. Also, if we want to get silly, we can go back into this distortion curve here and do another pass of this just to see what would happen. Now notice that this distortion we're adding, well, it's built into the frequency of this sub already. We're only changing the waveform of the sub itself, and that's why this is so powerful. Notice how this distortion isn't as destructive as the distortion here. It's rumbly, but this one here, when I add this distortion, it's coherent because it's in tune with its own frequency. So we've sort of replaced the distortion that was here with this distortion instead. So let's go ahead and generate this waveform and then export it. Oh, and by the way, if you own Kick, you can also save this preset, and then you can make adjustments to your track specifically. If it's not fitting, you can gel it in, EQ, whatever. That way you don't have to be stuck with the sample audio waveform like this. You have fewer options on processing. So let's go ahead and save. Another feature, Sonic Academy, that I would like to request is when you go save as, I'd like to see a small list. For example, we're in user presets here, or general kicks, or whatever folder you're selected. There should be a preview of such folder here, because now I have to cancel and go out. If I'm naming my stuff sequentially, I have to see where I've left off, because I don't remember. So if I go to general kicks, I'll see I have 5 general kicks I've created. So now I can close out of that, save as general kicks, and call it gkick 6. Looks like that. Actually, as you can see, I made a mistake, so now I have to rename this, which can't be done in this GUI. Now I have to reveal it in Explorer and then rename it. It's quite inconvenient. Let's let that update, and now it is proper. Well, I hope that was helpful. That was, I would say, lower on the difficulty scale workflow. There's a lot more I could do to the sample, not limited to including using AI. So for example, if I open my browser here and go to Deep Sampler by Audiolab, all you have to do is take your sample and drag that into Deep Sampler. Create a variation that can vary between 0 and 1. I'm gonna go ahead and set it to maybe 28, so it'll be more the same than it is different, and then generate. So here's the original, and here are the variants it's created. You can also increase the variation and get something a little bit newer. The benefit of this AI method is creating velocity layers of your kick. If we open a sampler, we can open zone here and drag all 3 of these kicks into sampler, and then we can scale the velocity for each sample. So now when you're playing your kick drum, it will have the illusion of multi-sampling, sort of like an acoustic instrument. If you were to multi-sample hitting a kick drum soft, medium, and hard, we've simulated an approximation to that. And now if you process this, if you squash all this down with distortion, add reverb and all that stuff, you get sort of a velocity layer multi-sample type thing. This was just a small example, but we can just add processing to this further and further and until our kicks are good sounding. And the best part is we won't have all of that rumble from the incoherence in the fundamental sine wave of the kick. That's where most kick mistakes are made, is people, they create kicks by blending a bunch of kick waveforms together, and the phase cancellation creates so much low frequency noise that it becomes earthquakey, rumbly, boxy, muddy, whatever you want to call it. It's like muddy, but instead of in the low mid range, it's in the high low range. Anyway, I'll put these 3 samples in the description and download them, make some kicks. All right, have a nice day. Bye-bye.